All right, guys, welcome back. This is 12th Man Up. Thank you for joining me. After a really tough loss against the Atlanta Falcons, we now head to Detroit to play the Lions. And so today's video will just be a preview kind of as to what we need to do better in order to beat the Lions. So, question of the day for you guys, just comment below what you guys think. What is it that we need to improve on and do better to beat the Lions? What is it that's going to beat them? What's going to get us over that hump? So we're going to just start off with that offense. Now, our offensive line is my biggest issue with us. It needs to hold it together, especially in that second half. And what I mean by that is we were able to run the ball really well to start out against Atlanta. Penny was gaining 12 yards and 14 yards and just big plays. But then later on in the game, especially in that second half, our offensive line started falling apart. They're not creating the gaps. They're getting a lot of pressure against them, and our running backs are having to do a lot of work. So that is something I really need to see us do. Something to point out is last week, Dalvin Cook, the Vikings running back, against the Detroit Lions, he actually had 5.6 yards per carry. He put up 96 yards and a touchdown. So the Vikings really did a good job of being able to run the ball. So Seattle should be able to do the same. Now, when it comes to more of that pass protection, uh, what really bothered me was our offensive line. You know what? Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas, I'm not going to give them a hard time. They actually did pretty good. The only thing I would say is to avoid penalties for them. They're going to have a big day against Adrian Hutchinson. But who I'm really kind of upset about is Austin Blythe, our center, and Gabe Jackson. They're getting plowed through. And that one drive where we were trying to come back when we were down at the end of the game, basically our last drive, they just got beaten. It's like they let him run right by. And Geno Smith got sacked. And there's nothing really you could say bad against Geno Smith in that game. He had a good day overall. His QBR was 99%. His quarterback passer rating was 99%, and he really had a good game. And the only thing I would have against Geno, even though it's not necessarily his fault, is when he gets in those third and longs, he's just not clutch, and he's not the guy that's gonna bring you back. And I'm not asking for him to do that. What I'm asking is to avoid this offensive line, to avoid the penalties, and to avoid just getting plowed through. Just give him some time, especially in that second half. It was just so tough to watch. Now, I'm going to go into the running backs a little bit, even though I just kind of mentioned them. I feel like our running backs have done really well. Rashad Penny has run the ball well. Ken Walker had that good run last week. And the struggle with them is, like I've been giving the offensive line a hard time about, is they don't get a lot of gaps. They're having to do most of the work running the ball. They're having to break tackles to gain these big yardage, and that's something that hopefully we could do this next week. Like I mentioned, Dalvin Cook had a good game, so hopefully Penny will have a good game as well. Something I actually want to see more of when it comes to running the ball is, I think, DJ Dallas, who has done a really good job. He is such a heavy running back, and he does a good job as like a disguise blocker sometimes. If we could just do almost a delayed handoff and give the ball to him, I think we could throw the Lions off guard a little bit with that run game. Because a lot of times if we have Dallas in, they'll think we'll be passing the ball. Okay, so moving on. Oh, someone I want to mention, Tyler Jones, he does Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. He mentioned that DK Metcalf needs to get the ball a lot more. DK has been held under 100 yards all season. He hasn't had a single game where he's gone over 100 yards. And so I'm kind of curious to see how well he will do with the opportunity to get the ball more often. So, yeah, this is something to experiment on with Geno Smith. The only thing I do want to point out is the Lions cornerback, I don't want to get it wrong, Jeff Okudah. He only allowed 3 catches for 5 targets against Justin Jefferson last week. Justin Jefferson only had 34 yards total. So this cornerback will probably be up against DK, so it'll be actually a good test for DK. And I still want the ball thrown to him. I want to see what he could do against that tough corner. Okay, I want DK to the test, because if he's going to be that top receiver, he needs to be able to catch the ball and make plays with these good corners on him. Now let's move on to the defense. Like I said, with Geno Smith, I don't really have any hassle with him as long as he does exactly what he did last week, which is be patient in the pocket, find your reads, hit your targets well. Then I'm happy. So And the only thing I would say is probably step up in the pocket a little more. Don't just stand in one spot. Okay, that's my only thing against them. Okay, moving on to our defense. Stopping the run is obviously the main focus for this week. That was probably the most frustrating thing watching our defense. I mean, we struggle all around. But Patterson, the running back for Atlanta, he averaged 8.3 yards per carry and ran for 141 yards total and got a touchdown against us. I mean, whenever he ran off the edge, it was too easy. Our defensive linemen need to do a lot better job containing that running back. And here's where the real struggle comes in, is the Lions, they actually rank third in the league for running the football with both DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams and Craig Reynolds, too, their third string. He averaged 7 yards per carry last week against the Vikings. That's their third string. So they're going to definitely try to run the ball down our throats. And what's funny about this is kind of like what Seattle wants to do. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more. But the Lions offensive line does a really good job of actually creating the gaps for their running backs, unlike us. They also, when it comes to pass protection, the Lions offensive line gave up 0 sacks last week with 41 pass attempts. So this is going to be a good test for our defensive line. Like I said, we're developing players. I've been saying it all season long. We're developing players, so I expect us to be put to the test this week. And I still want to see Boye Mafe, Nwasu get at it, and some of those interior linemen too. Woods, I want to see him get into that pile. So to move on, I don't want to miss anything. Give me a sec. Now, like I said, off the edge, we need to do better. And if the Lions are good at creating gaps down the middle, then they're going to use both the edge and those gaps. So, but the thing is that's actually interesting is the Lions are actually really beat up. I'm looking at this injury report, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like 10 players that are injured for the Lions. It's pretty brutal. Also, DeAndre Swift is pretty beat up. They're starting running back. Amon-Ra St. Brown is injured. They're starting wide receiver. So there's no excuses heading into this game. Seattle needs to put up good numbers, put up a good defense. Our corners are going to be put to the absolute test this week. And they need to make as many turnovers as possible. If there's one thing that Seattle's defense actually did a decent job on last season, even though our defense really struggled overall, was we were able to get a lot of these kind of turnovers that would keep us in the game. And obviously we got an interception last week, I think before the end of the first half. But I want to see some more of that. I want to see our corners fighting for the ball a little bit more because Marcus Mariota didn't struggle against our corners at all. He last week averaged 11.5 yards per attempt, and he had a 99.8 passer rating. So he had it easy against us. Jared Goff, he performed best when he does play action. So if the Lions are able to run the ball really well, then it's gonna open up to that play action with Jared Goff, and that's what he does best at. But last week he actually struggled overall with a 79% passer rating. What's interesting about this is it's the same formula as Seattle. Seattle loves to run the ball, run, and then open up the passing game with either a deep ball and just do that play action. So this is nothing new for our defense. So there's no excuses going into this. Our corners should be ready for this. Our linebackers, Cody Barton, they all should be ready for this as well. Goff under pressure causes a lot of turnovers. And last week against Mariota, we actually did a decent job of causing that pressure. We had 3 sacks total, 6 quarterback hits, and a 47.8 pressure rating against Mariota. 47% of the time we were causing pressure against them. And that's really good. Except they just realized, hey, all we have to do is run the ball and we're going to beat them. And that's exactly what they did. So if the biggest thing I think we need to do well against the Detroit Lions, it's stopping the run. Stop the run. They're going to try and run the ball as much as possible. If we could figure out a way to stop that, cause some pressure against Goff, it should cause some turnovers. And look, the Lions made a lot of dumb mistakes last week. They had 7 penalties last week, which is normally high. They went 3 for 16 on 3rd down and missed 2 field goals. The thing is, they're going to be back at home this week, and they're going to try and come out as a different team. So the thing about the Detroit Lions, and I hear people say this, Detroit Lions fans all the time, is you just don't know what kind of Lions team you're going to get. Sometimes they can come out and they can just look really crummy, and sometimes they can come out and they just play amazing. They look like they could be a potential playoff team. So they're going to be at home, and I think obviously they're going to bring out the best version of themselves. They're going to try to get rid of all those mistakes they had against the Vikings, so we need to be prepared. We need to be able to run the ball ourselves. And like I was mentioning, Dalvin Cook had a good game against them, averaging 5.6 yards a carry, a touchdown, and 96 yards, almost over 100 yards. So I expect Rashad Penny to have a good game, Ken Walker to have a good game, and maybe even DJ Dallas. So on the offensive side, I'm going to give the pressure to our offensive line. The offensive line needs to give Geno time. They need to create gaps for our running backs, especially in the second half. And for our defense, mostly it is to stop the run. It's our defensive line. Now, obviously, our corners need a lot of help too, but I'm going to put the pressure on our defensive line. If we could stop the run and apply pressure to Jared Goff, I'm sure he'll make mistakes. So those are the biggest issues both for our offense and our defense. I want to thank the NFL YouTube account for the info they provided for this matchup preview. They make it really easy to show up all the stats, so thank you for that. And at the end of their videos, they show their predictions of all their NFL writers. And out of 10 of them, they all say that the Lions are going to win at home against Seattle. And who knows, maybe Seattle will surprise us all, but heading into this game, I'm taking Detroit too. I think they're gonna win 27-24 since they're at home. They came off against the Lions, a tough loss. So we'll see what Seattle brings to the table. Like I said, we got a lot of young players, a lot of young developing players, but the Lions are injured. So we should capitalize on this moment. I expect to see a difference in some playmaking compared to last week. Like I said, throughout the season, I don't want to see the same thing over and over and over again. I really hope Pete and his play calling develops well with these young guys, and that we don't make those silly mistakes like the Lions made last week. So that's going to be all for today. Please comment below what you guys think. What does Seattle need to improve on and do best to win this game? So other than that, I'll give you guys my post-game review either Monday or Sunday. So go Hawks.